Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, I want to talk about why you should focus on mastery-based learning in any subject. If you're not familiar with mastery-based learning, it's the idea that in any subject, there's going to be core fundamental skills that are super important to a high percentage of situations. Now, two common places where you hear this type of language applied to learning are for technical skills like software engineering or for sports. And a common one that comes to mind is a sport like mixed martial arts or martial arts. In these disciplines of martial arts, there's a concept, especially in competitive fighting, called high percentage moves. This idea that you can learn all these techniques, a million techniques, but there's going to be a certain amount of moves that are super high percentage that are always used all the time. And mastering these few fundamental skills are going to be important to a highest, super high percentage of situations. Hence the name, high percentage moves. The same thing applies to things like technical skills. In learning technical skills, something like software engineering, there's going to be certain fundamentals that are going to be used in a high percentage of situations, meaning they're more important to really master than some of the other more fringe topics. If you've learned anything or really had some period of deliberate learning for a subject you wanted to get to a super high level in, then you're probably already familiar with this. Music is another good example where mastery-based learning applies. If you're trying to learn the piano or you're trying to learn to play a guitar and you want to become a master at it, you want to get to a very high level, well, in addition to playing around and having fun and learning some different techniques and songs and ways to play, you're going to have to continually return to your basics. You're going to, spend a lot of time practicing things like your scales or things like basic, if you're on guitar, basic chord progression. These things are going to be, this learning path is going to be circular. You're going to keep coming back to the basics to keep pushing your proficiency in the basics to a higher and higher level. What I really like about this idea is it's super transferable to anything you're doing in life. One of the reasons that's the case is because, in any field, you see that the highest performers are the people who have really mastered the basics. They've undergone that circular learning path and they've gotten a ton of repetitions and they've worked out all the little nuances in how they do something to really get to a higher level of proficiency and a higher level of performance. And the reason this is important is because obviously if you're doing anything that's competitive, which are, most things are, you're trying to, get any edge that you can get. And when you start to rise up in any field or any type of skill that you're learning, that's when you really start to see a lot of the benefit. And in terms of practice, mastery-based learning can be thought of kind of like your compound interest to learning. If you've ever seen a compound interest graph, you know what it looks like. It basically starts out flat, and as time goes on, the curve starts to get steeper and steeper and steeper. And when you're learning a specific subject, you can think of switching around and learning a bunch of different things to a very small degree, shallow learning, like missing out on that compounding interest curve. When you learn a bunch of things to a very small, shallow level, you're basically getting better at them, but you never give your chance to reach that inflection point on that compounding interest curve. So skills can really be thought of, working on skills and getting to a mastery-based learning to reach this very high level. You can think of it like compounding interest and like investing in the long run. Undertaking a mastery-based learning approach really is like undertaking long-term investing in those skills that you've chosen. Now, the obvious downside to this is if you're learning a bunch of things, small, shallow level, you can learn a lot of different things. You can switch around a lot. You can experiment with different things. You don't really have to make any decisions about what you're learning or what you're investing your time in. Obviously, this isn't the case with mastery-based learning. But what I think is effective is to pick, a few skills that are really important to you or skills that you think there's a very high probability will be useful to you in the future, and then kind of focus on those. Just pick a few different things that you're going to focus on and really take this mastery-based learning approach, focus on those and develop those things. And what this will allow you to do is it might be uncomfortable to make that decision and cut off all these other possible things that you could be working on, but you'll get some of that long-term compounding interest and you'll give yourself a chance at least to reach that inflection point where your skill level starts to really get high and you start to get really competitive in that field. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, this approach is gonna apply pretty much across the board. Now you might be saying like, this, man, that's not very exciting. I have to cut out what I'm doing. I can't do as many things. Like, you know, I get what you're saying. You're gonna, you know, reach that compounding interest curve and you're gonna get better, but I can only do it in a few areas. That doesn't really help me. There's definitely a hack to this. And the hack basically is, you know, certain skills and certain areas of skill are much more transferable to the rest of life than other things. For example, people skills is something that, you know, a lot of salespeople are really good at. That's not something that only applies to sales. You know, if you're a software salesperson, you know, an account executive, a software salesman or woman, and you get really good with people, that's not just gonna help you in your job in sales, right? That's gonna help you in a ton of different things. And, you know, that type of skill that you're learning, it's not gonna be applicable to one thing. Another skill I see, you know, on the other side of the spectrum that's broadly applicable is people who have highly technical jobs. You think like accountants or software engineers. These type of people have worked on the skill of conscientiousness, developing a super high level of conscientiousness, attention to detail, thoroughness, and ability for follow through with very, you know, what to other people would be tedious, detail-oriented jobs. That skill is not just going to apply, you know, to your profession if you're an accountant or you're a software engineer. That skill is going to apply to your life, and it's really going to enhance your abilities in a number of other activities. Being physically fit, if there's a type of physical fitness that you're into, you know, something that's highly skilled, like getting strong few lifts in the gym, you know, developing relative strength, just like a power lifter does in the gym, or working on gymnastics, or, you know, working on, you know, running as a sport long-term and really getting good at it and training to reach higher levels of ability. That type of fitness in any of these activities you're focusing on is going to pull up your abilities in a lot of other areas of your life. It's going to be easier for you to do a lot of other things. You're going to have more energy for work. So my point in saying this is that you can use this mastery-based learning approach and take this long-term view of different skills that you're developing by picking ones that you know or you feel have a high probability of being important to your life in the future, and also picking those skills that have a high probability of being applicable to other parts of your life. If you do those two things and you're really conscientious about it, it's the one hack that can make this whole process easier so you don't feel bad about, you know, putting those other things that you're not focused on to the side. You know, so that's mastery-based learning in a nutshell. It's a topic I find really interesting that I'm going to focus on in future videos. Hopefully you guys got something out of that and that made sense. I think I kind of started to ramble on here, but hopefully you guys get the idea. Make sure if you haven't already to hit the like button, comment below letting me know if you'd like to see more on this topic or what you would like to see. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. And thank you guys for watching.